We're back. We're back. All right, let's get this thing rolling. So where to begin? Uh, the bulls are back
We
and
can
forth.
begin with Tesla.
No, let's just start with the general stuff on the market. I mean, the bulls are back and forth again.
Yeah.
I was talking yesterday to a fellow, very senior guy on the street. He's been in the spaces numerous times. The name is not important. You've heard him speak. You even heard him speak in the last 2 weeks.
Can you give us a fake
No,
name?
Dilly, I just said it's not important. Okay. If I told you, if I told you it was,
I just like your fake names. They make me laugh
no,
so
no,
hard.
no, no,
Like,
no, no, I'm not, no, no, no. So, and he okay. So, it was, well, whatever. No, it's not important. He told me in conference. I really can't give this up. Okay. So anyway, he's at marketing, and he's like, George, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, on Monday, everyone's slitting their wrists. The market's going to zero. Okay, fine. Yesterday, clients are having FOMO. They're worried about missing the market rallying up. And I'm like, I always tongue in cheek, I go forever tweeting out, buy high, sell low, wash, rinse, repeat. I mean, this is what's going on. And the market just has no institutional memory from one day to the next. And we concluded the conversation, as I want to say on many occasions, nobody knows nothing. It's all sentiment driven. And I don't think we're out of the woods by a long stretch. Let's see how far this can go. I was totally blown away. I'm not going to mention names, but there was a podcast I was listening to a couple of nights ago. When the heck was this? Today's Friday. It was Wednesday night. And these guys are experienced. And they're like, we're going to rally back up to whatever the breakdown level was. I don't know, 5,600 or whatever, 5,700. And if we get through there, it's blue sky and there's no telling how high we could go. And they declared the dollar's going to be in a bull market for the next 6 months. And gold's going to go down for the next 6 months. And yields are going down and da 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 da. And I'm like, WTF, you get 2 days of a rally and this is what people are saying? It's just insanity, complete insanity. And so no, and again, price, the narrative follows the price. Price moves, and then they come up with a story. And there's always this enduring need to try to attribute the daily movement to some story or some reason. And the fact of the matter is, the market, certainly on a day-to-day basis, is like a random number generator. It's impossible to predict. Anyone who claims they can is a fool or a liar, and trying to game that is insanity. And then, someone tweeted out today, it was Michael Kramer actually. He said something like, if I hear one more word about a breath thrust, I'm going to slip my wrists. And then I had that snarky tweet back to him. I said, yeah, what's this I'm hearing about a breast breast thrust? And everyone is now instant technician as well. So nothing's changed. Well, nothing's changed as far as what's fundamentally going on. I mean, there's no agreement. I sent out a tweet today about there's not going to be any major trade agreement. So what happens? Trump's trying to, maybe he's backing down from the trouble he created before. Either way, all this other stuff is really kind of irrelevant. What's more important, I go back to Michael Howe, who we had in last week, who said, the U.S. may or may not win the trade war, but they're going to lose the capital war. And that's what's more important. I mean, going forward on an enduring basis, rates will be higher than they would have been otherwise. Growth will be slower than it would have been otherwise. The economy will be, weaker. Corporate profits will be lower than it would have been otherwise. And that to me is more important rather than everyone's, well, we're in a recession, we're not in a recession. And then, there's some really pretty interesting threads, tweets out there. I was reading a really interesting one yesterday. Someone said, well, if you look at when on April 10th, when the what hit the fan, it takes 30 days for a shipment to get from China to the port of Long Beach, and therefore the effect of the tariff nonsense won't be felt until May 10th. And then if you look how long it takes to get to Chicago or New York, it's 45 days, so it won't be felt until, May 25th, and da 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 da. They're trying to game the whole thing. And I read this whole thing, yeah, it was accurate, but like, who cares? I mean, if indeed, if indeed there were to be some type of material agreement, no one's going to care if the economy's crappy for a few weeks. They're just look right through it. So everyone's a trade expert, and nobody. Yeah, I go back to the line of using this space a few times. Nobody knows nothing, and you got to be honest with with yourself and pretend as such. Let's see where else I want to go here before we start mixing it up. Topics that we could discuss. There was a lot of news. This is nothing directly of significance, but it's informative of what we're looking at. I don't know how many people caught this, but a bunch of the big university endowments are now all screwed up. Private equity, as many of us have been calling for quite some time, is going, if I can use the phrase, tits up. Um, Yale University, my alma mater, announced they were trying to sell 6 billion. Actually, they announced they reached an agreement to sell, I believe, $6 billion of private equity. Which they don't exactly tell you how much they got because the last number we have is from 23. But I think it's reasonable to assume that in a $40 billion portfolio or $41 billion portfolio, maybe they've got 12 billion in private equity, 12, 15 billion. So 6 billion is a big number. It's like 40 to 50% of the private equity stake. Harvard also announced they're trying to sell $1 billion in private equity. That follows on the news of a week or two earlier, where they announced they were, I think, issuing a bond in the amount of $750 million. There were other universities, I think Brown, some other ones doing the same thing. It's kind of bizarre when you think about it. I mean, Dilly, think about this. If you had an institution that had $53 billion with a B, 53,
Mhm.
$53 billion with a B endowment, okay? And then the next thing you know, they want to go borrow 700. I mean, I know you've never been an endowment or chief investment officer, but you can figure this out. They have $53 billion,
Well,
right?
how do you know? Maybe I have.
Maybe you have. Okay, but hear me out. Hear me out. Hear
Okay.
me out.
All right,
50,
I'm listening.
50,
I haven't.
yeah,
I haven't. Full
$53 billion
disclosure.
dollars, $53 billion, right? But
Mhm.
now they're going to the bond market to borrow 750 million. Like, what occurs to you when you hear that? Like, what's the matter? They got a liquidity problem or something? They can't.
Yeah,
So, like, to put it in your
there's
Bitcoin crypto
something
universe, I
cooking.
mean, they're long shitcos, aka private equity. So they're in all this
Mhm.
illiquid garbage, private equity, venture, all this stuff, and Harvard's unbelievable. $53 billion. They have 40%, 40% in private equity. Okay, so I mean they're toast. And then you would have seen earlier this week the Chinese announced in I think that they were going to instruct their investment companies not to invest any more in private equity. Ooh. So I think again, this is not directly invest. I don't know what you do with this necessarily, other than continue to short KKR and Apollo and all these guys. But I mean, it's game over. And the other really interesting thing about this, in the article about Yale, it's supposed to be the smartest guys in the room. They got this endowment model. They did so well for so long. Or David Swenson. You look at the returns the last 3 years; they're abysmal. I think they're up like 5% the last year, and the year before 1%, and the year before that they were flat. I mean, I think over 3 years they made like a total of 8%. But the worst part of it is, it's not they're only up 8% in 3 years. The worst part of it is they're stuck in all this illiquid crap. I mean, at least if they put it in the S&P futures or Bitcoin or gold, they could blow it out. But all right, they can't get out. They're stuck. So watch in the coming months. I think you're going to see a lot of problems coming out with private equity. This is the tip of the iceberg. So we can talk about that. We can talk about what a hellscape Twitter continues to be. I mean, Dilly, I don't know if it's appropriate, but you and I had a conversation post our tremendous space with Jordy Visser the other day.
That was such a
It
great
was a
space.
great space, and I was.
And I feel like we should say that we're sorry that it wasn't recorded because I don't know about you, George, but I've had a lot of DMs where people want the recording, but unfortunately it wasn't recorded.
Yeah,
But we're
so
gonna
so
have
s
it back.
yeah, so Dilly, I'm gonna say it a different way. I'm not gonna say I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
No, I will say it's regrettable. It is regrettable, truly
It is
regrettable.
absolutely
It's
regrettable.
regrettable, okay? But
Truly.
but it just goes to show, Dilly, what's the point you always make about it? Like, you snooze, you lose, like, maybe people should come to
Yeah,
their
that's
lives.
the way the cookie
Yeah,
crumbles. I know.
exactly. Keep them
Hmm.
keep them guessing, keep them guessing. And so, listen, I didn't agree with everything that Jordy said. That doesn't
But you seem to be interested.
Yeah, well, you know why? Because it makes me think. And
Yep. I
what,
think
what, what,
he
what
that was the best, like he gave the best case for just like the traditional finance, like legacy finance, why they should like take a second look at Bitcoin. I
Yeah.
think that he really like put it out there
Well,
well.
and again, as you and I talked the other day, the thing that was tremendous about him, he's what do you call it, TradFi guy, but he's in crypto and AI and all this stuff. He's one of the few guys out there that can bridge both camps. You have a lot of Bitcoin crypto people that don't know shit about TradFi. You have TradFi boomers like myself who we can try faking we know about Bitcoin, but well, let's be honest, okay? But it's like someone who's fluent in multiple languages. And I just have to say, generally, I'm not going to name names. I am not going to name names, but I am going to say I have a real hard time with people who were criticizing him. And, like, you're not going to agree with 100% of what he said. I didn't. But what I can't stand about Twitter, and it happens all the goddamn time, you have someone come in, say something intelligent, you should try to think about how do I value this guy? Why is he important? Why does he make me think? Instead of, it's my dick is bigger than yours. And let me tell you the one thing that he said, the one thing that he said that I disagree with, and he's an idiot. Okay. And
Yeah.
I just have no patience for that. None.
No
And
patience.
people have to stop pulling that crap. You don't have to agree with the guy, but try to understand the guy. And instead of saying, "Oh, here's the one thing he said I disagree with," how about the nine things you learned from listening to him? People just
Absolutely.
have a bad attitude, and I'm not going to name names, but you know who I'm talking about, each of you, all right? And it just really pissed me off. And then some people had the audacity. One person in particular had the audacity. Oh, you mean we can't ask a question about something we disagree with? I'm like, NFW. You just want to get on stage, jackass, because you want to give this guy a hard time. And that is just so wrong. So wrong. I don't know if people have ego problems or insecure. Like, cut it out. Just cut it out. And then people, oh, you're not gonna let me talk. No, if you're gonna try and give this guy a hard time, and this is like the best space we've had all time, NFW, I'm not letting you up here. It's just not gonna happen.
What is NFW?
No blank.
No effing way.
Yeah, no.
I just want, hey, you guys, I wanted George to say it. When he comes out with acronyms, I wanted him to say it.
Dilly, I'm trying to maintain whatever scrap of credibility or gravitas I have. I'm trying to like hang on to it.
I
So
know.
like I try
You're
not
doing
to.
a great job.
I try not to use F words. But
That's okay.
okay, so that's why. I mean, listen, my vocabulary is as good as anybody's. You want to get down and dirty, like I'll come back like Cheech with the helium voice, and we can go for it. Okay, but like right here, right now, like not happening. Just not happening.
Not happening.
All right. So what else can we talk about? Oh, sorry. One other thing on gold. So, I was interviewed on Schwab this week earlier, and I think I put it up in the thing. You could see me. And anyway, so they're all want to talk about gold because that was the day gold's down $100 or something like that. Gold, it's the biggest single day decline in 12 years. The sky is falling. Oh my God. We bring in expert George Noble to talk about gold. All right. And I'm like, yeah, let me get this straight. Gold has crashed to levels not seen since last Thursday. And people are running around like it's the end of the world. I mean,
That's how I feel about Bitcoin.
I
When
don't-
people talk about Bitcoin crashing, I'm like, okay,
Dilly, it's
yeah.
100%.
Mm-hmm. Literally,
I
it's like,
know
oh
it's a
wow,
hundred
it went to
percent.
80,000. Ooh, I'm
I
scared.
know, like if you're gonna be bearish on gold, okay, let's see
Mm-hmm.
if I can trigger Dilly. If you're gonna be bearish on gold, you should have a really good argument and sound really smart like me. Okay, like you better have your ducks in a row, right, Dilly? Anyway,
Yeah.
but I mean these media people, oh, gold is in a bear market now. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought I was very proud of this, my snappy comeback. I said, you know what? This is a bull market in more impressive than the bull market in gold because I think gold's going a lot higher. I don't know where it's going in the short run. And who knows? Just like you don't know where Bitcoin's going in the short run. I said gold's going a lot higher up and to the right. I said more impressive than the bull market in gold is the bull market and the number of people calling the top in gold. All right, and in my experience over the decades, usually the ones who are quick to call the top in Bitcoin, gold, or whatever it is, usually they're the ones who don't own it. All right. And so I don't know. It's all over. All right. Listen, I've been ranting for 20 minutes. Enough. Let's get this ball rolling. Van, are you sober or did you got to get some coffee, Van, before you can speak?
It's
It's happy hour, George. This is what I live for.
Oh, hell yeah.
So, Van, when did you start today? At lunch?
Ah, yes.
Or did you never come in from last night, Van?
Well, I have a couple of happy hour horror stories back there, so um, you never know how these things are going to turn out. Uh, I usually find that starting at noon on a Friday and just going straight through till Monday seems to be a good happy hour.
So, Van, in your world, every Friday is a good Friday. Is that the idea?
Absolutely.
Cool. So, Van, you going out of the city this weekend, or you what do you got? You got some you got a usual on? It's like what's going on? You got a quiet weekend, or what you doing this weekend? It's nice. You get outside. You could use a little fresh air from time to time.
I have to I have to be honest. I have to catch up on some paperwork because I've been out of town. I was over in China for a little bit, looking into some new business ventures.
So they must be really. I imagine they're really. They must really value your capital right now, given all the scrutiny they're under, right? So they were. They probably treated like royalty. No, I mean, I guess you always get the high treatment. No.
Yeah, well, first, let me back up a second, George. At the beginning, you were talking about Yale, or did you say that was your alma mater?
Yeah, I will admit to having been seen in New Haven once upon a time. Yeah.
All right, and how bad are they down?
We don't know how much they're down, but we know in the last 3 years they've made a grand total of 8%. In 3 years, 8%.
Well, if it's anything under 5 billion, I'll check my right front pocket for you. See if I can make up the difference. But
But
anyways,
but Van, you know how this works. Like when you got that illiquid shit, you take those flyers and you can kind of like make up the valuation. So like that's what they're doing with their private equity. So think about it, Van. If they're like 20% in private equity, and let's say the carrying value, just start the conversation, is 10% too high, maybe it's 20% too high. I mean, all of a sudden, that $40 billion endowments, maybe it's 37 billion or 34 billion or whatever. So, Van, you know what happens? Like usually, like end of the year, like when you have your privates and you're taking your carrying shit, like how do you mark those things? It just depend on what, like whatever how many drinks you've had. Like, what do you can make up the number, do whatever you want, basically.
I mark the market the same way I mark my bar tab, which is once a week and in denial, and after several strongly worded calls from compliance. So,
So, yeah, we've all been there, Van. We've all been there.
George, did I ever tell you about uh, the biomed space that I investigated last time I was in China?
Oh no, no! I please, we didn't tell me that one. I think we all like to hear about that. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
What happened?
if you were looking at the relative strength, it seemed like the biomed space was a little undervalued. So everybody was telling me I was missing out on China biomeds. So I decided to get involved. Figured I'd diversify out of bourbon and into communicable diseases. So I flew over to China to do a due diligence tour. Had a couple of cocktails on the flight, or maybe more than a couple. But when I got there, the building was very sterile and sciency. So we started off by getting over to this facility and doing a tour. But after the first couple of minutes, I really needed to pee, so I wandered off from the tour to find a bathroom. Yeah, I found one with a sign on it, but because it was in Chinese, I couldn't read it, but it looked like a men's room. I opened the door and there was a bunch of guys in suits yelling in Mandarin. I panicked, but I found an exit door down the hall, which had a nice little alley behind it, and I did what I needed to do. The next thing I know, I forgot to close the damn door, but I'm on CNBC seeing the markets melting down. I'm shorting the S&P, and Fauci's on CNBC 5 days a week.
Oh,
Anyways, no regrets. I'm still up 12% on my Moderna.
wow. So, Van, I gotta tell you a story. I mean, you're probably since you travel big, you probably haven't had this experience. I'm sure when you go to ball games, you're up in the club seats and everything. I'm sure you're getting feted with the best seats in the house all the time. So, let me tell you a story, Van. This is a true story, actually. This was back in the early '80s. So first time I ever went to see the New England Patriots play, they were playing in Foxborough Stadium, Schaefer Stadium, and it was a Monday night game. And all you might remember, and Van, you for you it's great because the games they used to not start till 9 o'clock. Now they move up to like 8 o'clock, whatever. So anyway, this is Dallas Cowboys against the New England Patriots, and this when they had Tony Dorsett playing for Dallas, and I don't think Roger Staubach was still the quarterback, but it's Tony Dorsett anyway. So you'd really be at home. You should come up to Boston, Van, because the Boston sports fans like to get really sauced before a game. I'm sure you've had your share of tailgating, right? So we get in there. First half the game's kind of competitive, so the crowds kind of behave. They're drunk as skunks, but they're kind of behaving themselves. So halftime, I had to do as you did. I had to go and Dilly. This is a true story. I'm not making this up, and I am sober. So I had to go to the men's room, take a leak at halftime. So I go, and like this is enormous line. It's like, it's all around the block, whatever. And I'm like, oh God, this is ridiculous. Like I can't hold it that long. And then I look, and I see this one line that's short. This is a true story, Dilly. I know you think I'm a total DJ, well, half a DJ. Now I'm a total DJ. Wait to hear this. So I'm like, oh, okay, this line looks good. So I go over, where's O'Hare when I need him? This is O'Hare type of story. So I go over on this other line and I go in. Okay. I go in. All right. Dilly,
Yeah.
Dilly, I'm not making this up. These
Was it the
guys were
women's
cute.
room?
No, this is the men's room. These guys were queuing up. Okay. This is halftime of an NFL football game. And I know Nicola knows what I'm about to say. This is halftime of an NFL football game in a men's room. Okay. They're queuing up online. And these I can't believe I'm gonna say this is true. These guys, these guys went and they were pissing in the sinks.
Oh, really? Did you?
No, I don't quite remember. I think I blacked out
You
at that
totally
point.
did. You can tell us, George. It's just you're
I
telling.
don't,
It's no
I,
big deal. It's just a small conversation between friends on the
well,
internet that's
okay,
recorded.
okay, all
No
right.
big
So,
deal.
okay, so Dilly, listen, you may not remember this, but I don't know if you're in the room. But true confession, this is another true story. I don't know why I still go to the
The
bathroom.
George Noble confessional.
Yeah, okay, this is a great one. So I don't know if you were in the room, Dilly, but others were. So this is back in the good old clubhouse days.
Mm-hmm.
This is before spaces. This is a true story. So, I'm getting the hang of it. And, speak, unspeak, microphone, whatever. Do you remember the movie? I can't remember which Leslie Nielsen movie it is. Well,
Yeah.
he's at a dinner, like, at the Queen's place, right? He goes to the, let me not go, I'll just tell you what happened. So I'm on this space, right? Or this clubhouse thing, and I had to go take a leak, right?
Oh no. Did you
So
have your
what?
mic open?
It's like Naked Gun, right?
Open mic, right?
Oh no. How many people were in the room?
People are in the room, and I think Joe may have been there. People are in the room, and they hear me take,
Did you
they
okay,
hear
George?
me, they hear me
George,
taking
did
a.
you lie? Did you like come up with an
No,
excuse? Like
because
what did
no,
you do?
no,
What just
because
pivot?
what happened was,
Were
oh,
you just
so,
like, that's me, I'm peeing? Like what did you do
well,
next?
Dilly, I couldn't get out of it because there's only so many people on stage. They're like, oh, it's Noble. He's the one with the open mic, right?
Oh
So,
no.
so I'm there peeing, like singing away, okay. The whole room, hundreds of people heard this. Oh my God, I'm hurting. This is so bad. Oh,
George, so they all called you out on it? Oh
oh yeah,
man.
all of them. I got so busted. It was so bad.
You said Joe C was in the room. He definitely would have called you.
I mean, that
Oh,
happens, right?
oh, stuff happens. Stuff happens. So Van, I'm sorry to steal the show, but you really triggered me with your bathroom story, Van.
Well, George, I guess I understand that, pulling a full Naked Gun moment with the mic hot while peeing is perfect for the peak spaces history. Yep,
Wait, did they
we'll
call
call it
you out
we'll,
midstream?
we'll call it macro takes the midstream.
Yeah, it was
I've never
midstream.
been more bullish
Oh
on
Well,
the chaos.
no.
well, Dilly, I don't know how it is for women, but like Van can tell you, when you're going midstream, you got to stop. Like that's not a thing. That's hard.
Yeah, that's what I'm
So
saying. Like you can't stop midstream.
you
Stop
can't.
once I start, it stings.
So,
Listen, I am not.
Sorry to cut you
I'm
off,
not
Van.
coming
I
up
just
to
had a
Boston
question.
because Boston fans act like they personally close the trade deficit every time the Celtics hit a three. Like, relax. You're one Tom Brady bobblehead away from a margin call.
oh God. Oh God. So Van, did you come back with the inside word from your pals in China and the state council? Like, are they gonna? I know you're very tight with the Japanese. I mean, you've been, inside trading, front running with Japan. So what are your Chinese friends telling you? Like, what's gonna happen here,
Well,
Van?
as you let me back up. As you may know, I get very involved in currencies, and I was inspired by your previous spaces where you were talking about digital stuff. Back in 2019, I thought I had struck gold with a digital won play before the People's Bank of China announcement. It was the Xi crypto partnership. The coin was called G coin and it had a logo of their shades. The Chinese government banned it within 6 hours, but the coin is still listed on one exchange in Belarus. The trading volume is 11 yuan.
So you corner the market on this, Van. This is going to be the next coin that gets promoted. Is that the idea?
Hopefully, we'll be pumping this baby. But after that didn't work out, I decided I saw the ban on rare earth minerals, and I decided I would pivot to the rare earth mine that was available,
Ah,
and I flew out there and I visited, and there was some guy named Kevin, yes, Kevin, who pitched me a rare earth deal in Inner Mongolia. He said it was the next lithium boom. I flew out there and saw the mine. It was literally just a hole in the ground behind a KTV bar. I put 3 million in anyways because the cocktails there were fantastic.
so you're diversified. You got some RMB. You got
Well,
these rare earth
and
metals. You got some
then
shit coins from Belarus.
I had to fall back on my uh, you know, real love, which is liquor. So I went to the Beijing, luxury whiskey ETF. I thought it was a brilliant way to monetize the Chinese appetite for foreign spirits through an ETF. It only held one asset, though. It was a warehouse full of fake Glenlivet bottles filled with soy sauce. The NAV went to zero, but my sodium levels hit an all-time high.
Oh man, so Van, you got to recover. I mean, you were there. That's a long haul to get over there. That's pretty tiring. Guy your age, like flying all the way out there, coming back. I mean, like
But when I got back, I couldn't break the habit of the Chinese food. So, down on the corner there by the NYSE floor, there's a General Tso's chicken from a joint called Walk This Way, where the S&P is always down, the chicken's suspicious, but the fortune cookies just say recession. So that was my lunch. I washed it down with a Mai Tai that tastes like orange juice, regret, and lighter fluid. Garnished it with a cocktail umbrella and one unpaid margin call. I still think it's the only place in town where you can get lo mein and a liquidity crisis on the same tray.
oh man, you really you got we're worried about you. You got to rest up. You've had a tough few days. So Van, I think some others may want to query you for your wisdom. I don't know. Dave Nicoski's with us. They got Carpathy or Rusty, Niccolo. So whoever wants to speak up or got a question for Dilly or Van or anything, or just Van, it's Friday
Or
afternoon,
I can give
7
you
o'clock.
one more horror story, happy hour.
Yeah, sure. Why don't you just hang on? I think others may have some horror stories of their own they want to tell. So I don't know, Rusty, you got something or Carpathia? Anybody?
I'm curious what Van's next story is. Honestly. I'll hold off on my question. I want to hear it.
So
We have Cheech Bull in
I
the room. I invited him to speak. We
all
should get
right.
him out here.
There we go. There we go.
Hmm
I don't know. I got that's a pretty good gig there, Van. I mean, DrunkenMiller. That's hard to follow, but I don't have anything really funny to say. I'm stupefied. Maybe I just opened a beer about the just this behavioral finance. I don't know, George, if you saw today, Hal took risk. He went risk off. He's been. I'm an aggregator, so everyone should be well informed. I take the smartest people I know, 12 to 15, and then I decide for myself. But Hal, in his letter today, literally says, okay, I think he was previously, unless I'm behind, he was previously, it's okay for a while, but in his letter, he went risk off. And, I think we're living through, I want to laugh, but we're living through some, history, and it's fascinating. I take the St. James guys out of Dallas. They're pretty fantastic stock. Uh, we have some money with them. And, the behavioral finance aspects of this that are happening are beyond description, because a friend of mine at Sonica Capital laid out a very good case for the reasons the Mag 7 did so good and for 8 years. And it was true. Every one of his reasons are now turning, yet we have this willful desire to put money and capital at harm's way, and things are triggering, like you said, the thrust, which I get it. I studied it. I saw it. I'm choosing to discount it at the moment. My buddy, well, I won't call him my buddy, but the stack people up in Idaho are pretty damn good, and they've been warning about their 4 key indicators. They all turned. They in December, their artificial intelligence index went from yellow to red. The gorilla index went from yellow to red. They have a thing called the negative leadership, which these are 40-year indicators, and the housing bubble. And yet we've had billions of dollars flowing in, like my Sonica buddy says, assuming nothing's changed. It is truthful what Hal says, and it is truthful to say these things are reality and they're changing. Yet we are just pumping money, and I'm getting more defensive. I'm going to get more defensive, and it's it's going to be interesting. We're living history.
Yeah, no, it's
And
the Carpathia. You might
Yeah.
recall we had Michael Howland, God, what was it, Dilly, last week, I think. And, he
I,
went from saying he'd been concerned, I forget the exact verbiage he used about a recession, to like it was 100%,
yeah,
so. And
yeah,
Michael, just to contextualize him for everyone in the room, he's got the best cred in my view on the street, because there's some guys who were bearish and got 22 right, but they got over their skis and stayed too
right.
bearish. Yours truly, I raised my hand. And you got the perma bull crowd who've never seen a market they don't like. But I can't think of too many folks who called the down and the up correctly. Michael Howell being one of the few. So he's an honest broker. He's not biased one way or the other. He's just also all liquidity. And like probably it's like in sports. You give the ball to the guys that got the hot hand, right? So he's the guy. So I'm like,
Yeah. So people are just
uh,
ignoring. People are just ignoring it.
yeah.
I'll shut up. But I go through my volume actives, and
Mm-hmm.
these things are doing 30. I mean, I'm going to not name names. 35 million, 100. The top names in share are these 20-cent companies. Then you get to
Yeah,
the
no, yeah, it's
and
all insane.
it goes to Tesla, Nvidia, and I'm
Yep,
like, I'm
yep,
floored. Anyway, let's get back to being light. It's Friday. Let's have a drink.
yeah, no, for sure, for
No,
sure. Let's keep it going.
I'd like to
Man,
say, oh,
yeah, yeah. Hold on a second, man. Let's just move it around a little bit more. Rusty, did you want to say something? Rusty,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. One kind of on that subject, but also then kind of a funny one because it happened to Space the other day with sorry Georgia Boomer. But anyway, the first part is yesterday's Space. I did record it, but I said to Dylan, I cannot get the daggone audio to function. You sent me a
okay.
message, but it's one of those things where I'm still working on it.
All
So
right. Well, and by the way, Dilly, someone sent me today. I don't know why. I think they fat fingered it. Like 55 minutes of the space. So
Oh, really?
yeah, so I have it. So only half of it. So if
Oh.
if Rusty can pull it out, that'd be great.
Yeah, I
So
can pull the audio out, George, and send it over.
yeah, yeah, send it over because like I've never seen. I mean, Dilly, you were getting inundated with requests for the recording yesterday. So
Yeah, I still get messages today, like from
yeah,
people.
yeah, for
It was
sure,
a
for
really
sure,
I,
for
good
sure.
space. I feel like you were on the verge of buying Bitcoin in that space, but
Well, yeah, you can wait till next year.
I got
All
to
right,
run,
later
guys.
this
Have a
year
good
you'll
one
buy
this
all right,
afternoon.
Bitcoin.
Carpathia,
Bye bye.
thanks. Dave Nicoski, you there? You want to weigh in, or are you busy doing something, Dave?
No,
Dave,
I'm here. Sorry.
there you go. There
I
you go.
did
Happy
go after
Friday,
Van
Dave.
Drunkenmiller, and if you were trying to hide your prostate problem while that was being, over the loudspeaker when you were going to the bathroom, that's really, a secret that you want to keep quiet, right? You know, that's the one thing I'd have to say if that happened to me. Sorry, guys. But no, I've been like I never characterize myself as a bull and a bear. I follow trends. I look for what's changed. For myself, I'm having like the best 4 months ever in my career. So, and I don't want to I know a lot of people are having tough times, but um, I've been bearish. The transports. If you saw that SAIA reported today, was down 30 some percent. From 450 down to, or 350 down to 268 or
Oi,
something like that.
oi.
It's a large shipping company. I don't think, I look at these breadth thrust indicators, and yes, you can have a track record, but in the back of my mind, there's also the, much like what you saw in, '08 to '09, where everyone thought everything was fine. And, I'm looking at these old economy stocks, and they're just being pile driven. And, if the whole world just relied on AI and we didn't have to worry about trucks, sending expensive toilet paper and eggs around, that's a different thing. But not everyone works for Microsoft, Apple, and Amazon. And, so
Yeah,
there, historically, small caps, tend to lead off of, major lows. And, with what I see happening, to the small business side, it's like, who's going to buy services from the large companies if the small ones don't exist? Right. So I'm going to say, like, I'm not a bear. I'm not a bull. I've been doing extremely well in the emerging markets when I, made the call months ago. The dollar repatriation trade, I still think is in force. Nationalism here leads to nationalism everywhere. And, if you're a foreign country and you don't know what your trade is going to look like and how business could curtail off, the question is do you pull some of that money home? Who's going to buy bonds if Germany and Europe goes into a recession, or the Far East or Mexico or Canada, you have to sell US assets to prop up your own economy. So these are things that weigh on my mind. And I see the same exact things that I saw in 2002, back in that April. Guess what? It happens to be April, guys. So there's a lot of similarities, and I can't ignore it. I don't want to push it too hard because a clock's right, twice a day, and I don't want to be the guy that, right now everything that I indicated on, many spaces is what is occurring. And I don't know what's going to prop the dollar back up. I don't know what's going to push bond yields down. The only thing that's going to push bond yields down, in my opinion, is 2 years ago, the bond market got devastated and the 60/40 portfolios got devastated. We invented AI in 22, coming into 23, and that took off. And I think that helped save the market from, something really bad. And, you look where we are now, and you have to ask the question, if it could happen to bonds 2 years ago, could it happen to equities now? And that's kind of where I'm at. I just don't see a super strong economy. Aon, which is a insurance company, reported today, gap down. Took out tons of trend lines and support levels, and so I think there's more to go. It was, suffice it to saying, we could rally to the 50-day. I'm not, again, I don't want to come across as table
No.
pounding bearish or bullish, but I can point to the weak areas in the economy. I've discussed, the retail, XRT, the chemicals and transports, several months ago as being like the weakest links that have me concerned for at least the durables side of the economy.
Right.
And those I can't stress
Yeah.
enough that are
Yeah.
still in
Yeah.
good
For
shape.
sure. For sure. I mean, the Mr. Market's talking to us. By the way, I put up in the nest for everybody. So check this out. So you guys all have heard about the breath thrust that's been like making the rounds today. There's even a better one now. This is hilarious. Look at the one I put over. Um, where is it here?
Bread.
No. Hold on. There. We just got a super Zweig. So it's not just he goes. This is from Sentiment Trader. Forget the Zweig breath thrust. The NYSE just triggered a super Zweig. All right. So in any event, but what I found more interesting, and I'm trying to find the tweet now. Some guy who used to work with Marty Zweig, and I'm reminded of whoever said it a second. I don't know if it was Dave or whoever or Carpathia. Um, everyone's running like all the amateur technicians at home say, "Oh, Zweig's, Zweig's Smith, Zweig's Smith." Okay, so this one guy has been around. He goes, "I used to work with Marty." He goes, "Let me tell you, if Marty was here right now and he observed everyone's chanting breath thrust, he would totally discount that call. Like Marty's Zweig wouldn't even buy that call." So to me, this is all what I put this in a tweet the other day. It's a pejorative term, but there's a fellow, very smart British strategist, Andrew Smithers, who I met in the '80s, and he had this pejorative term, stockbroker economics. Basically, was referring to narrative investing. It's basically the bullshit that CNBC makes up. Okay, so it sounds good, but it's mile wide and an inch deep, and so things that sound impressive, but they're just totally like irrelevant. And so, look, I don't know what's going to happen. Dave doesn't know. Rusty doesn't. Nobody knows. All right, but when everyone starts going, breath thrust, no, not happen. Not. I would just all these self-appointed gurus, while they take time off from their consultancy and global trade and epidemiology, consulting on COVID and nuclear, and they have time to opine on breath thrust. So it's one of the things that drives me nuts about X or Twitter. So
And
anyway,
George, I'd
yeah,
like to comment. Having been in the industry for 38 years, what's I think is more important to me is say I don't know at periods I don't know instead of I know everything, right?
of
Like
course,
even I think you have to come to the conclusion if you're an expert, not buy, right? Like, hey, there's some uncertainty here. I don't know how it's going to end. What I do know is the administration came out and said it could take up to 3 years to negotiate the Chinese
yeah.
stuff. And everyone thinks this is a 1 day event and it's
Dave,
based on hope.
Dave,
Yeah.
100%, a hundred
So
percent, right? Yeah, there are those day trading rooms, and I don't want to mention names, but
Oh God.
there's that one room.
Yeah,
Uh,
George, I hear about the times that you talk crap about it. I hear about it every day when I'm in there.
no, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
No, Dilly, I'm going somewhere else now.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
done. I'm done with those guys. I'm done with those guys. Okay,
Okay.
so it's named after an animal. Okay, how
An
should I put
animal.
this? I don't want to insult anybody, but let's just call it's named after an animal. So it's walrus trading. Walrus Trading. Okay, starts with a W, and they have like rooms nonstop, and they always publish their schedule at the beginning of the week. Okay,
Uh-huh. I know what
and
you're talking about now.
Walrus Trading. Okay, I'm sorry it doesn't rhyme. Okay, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
And what Dave just said, he's been around the block a few times and gotten beaten up, and so we all learned to, to say we just don't know. I never, ever, ever, I don't think in my lifetime have heard anybody in Walrus Trading ever say they don't know. It's always you got to buy this, you got to sell that, and if Nicoski Industries is at 96, if it breaks above 98, we're going long, but if it breaks below 94, we're going short. They talk about everything. The only thing they ever talk about is price, and they're never in doubt. And that is just a complete no fly zone. So Walrus Trading, everybody, if you ever see a space from Walrus Trading, please do not go in that room. That's like, an hour of your life that you will never get back. All right, so let's keep it. So Van, you've had a
We have
chance
Cheech Bull up here too.
no, I want to get no Van is he may be faded because he's had a huge bender on. So Van,
Uh-huh.
while you're still lucid, like you got any other ideas for us, Van?
Well, just want to comment on I suppose the breath thrust thing. It sort of failed to launch, kind of like lighting a cigar in a hurricane. It's a lot of effort. There's zero lift, and you just end up wet and embarrassed. So the market was limp, and so was my faith. Back to Carpathia. I guess I was thinking about the risk off stuff. Look, I'm risk off in my portfolio because it's been swinging around harder than me after 6 bourbons. When the tariffs, the yields, and my blood pressure are all breaking out at the same time, it's time to hedge with some canned beans and a prayer.
So yeah, so Van. So speaking of breath, so like, have you had your fair share of breathalyzer tests? Like when you've been pulled over by those nice men in the blue suits with the badges, or are you just friends in the right places, so it's never a problem for you?
One thing that I have, learned over the years that I've had the privilege of is that I either have a driver or I'm on foot and I wind up in the bushes.
So Van, so you don't drive anymore. You just always have a driver for taking you around.
Yeah, that was how I got invested in that electric rickshaw thing when I was over there in China. But I think I may have mentioned this before, but it just ended up 2 guys with a car battery and a bill. So
But Van, don't you get some of your best research from the bar girls, the waitresses, and the drivers? I mean, that's real sort of kicking the tires fundamental research, no?
well, as I think it was Joseph Kennedy famously said that he was time to get out of the market when he was getting stock tips from his shoe sign. But the one thing that I found was that the guy who plays the saxophone on the green line sure doesn't let me down.
Yeah, for sure. So Van, you may not want to talk about this. I know this is very personal, but a guy like you know, you gotta be like the most eligible bachelor around town. You must, and people, they size you up by the size of your bank account, whatever. You must attract all types of interesting females, I would imagine, when you go out. No, I mean it's like, what is it like to be you? You just have to like beat them off with a stick. Like, what do you do?
Well, what I have had the opportunity to do is when I have seen that at a bar is well, I'm trying to think of a polite way to put this. I have found that after I've been drinking, I do in fact get approached, but how shall I say, my judgment is a little bit off on what I think I'm seeing. So, sort of like walking
What
into
you
a
think you're
macro event
seeing?
risk. So, I have found that I get emotional baggage heavier than my duration exposure, and commitment issues are wider than my bid ask spread. So, swipe right if you like bourbon and bad decisions and blaming Powell for everything.
Yeah, but so Van, depending on the time and place and circumstances and how much you've been drinking, so whether she's gone from a 5 to a 9, like how do what's your process? Could you please just explain your process of how you decide when to hit the bid?
Well, I think I may have gone back over there and told you that story once before about the threesome that didn't work out. But let me just back up, I guess, and ask I think your general question, which is, how do I pick up ladies? I pick up ladies the same way I pick up my trades. I'm overconfident, under researched, and usually wrong from both sides of the bar. So sometimes it's love, and sometimes it's a limit down and regret.
Oh man.
So, you know, a lot of times, George, just this happens on Fridays because of happy hour. So I did
Yeah.
want to tell you about an interesting happy hour I had. Um, you know, uh, uh, it gave me the margin call level sweats, but I'm sitting at this Upper East Side steakhouse, right? It's Friday happy hour. Market said just closed, and I'm a few old fashions deep, feeling like Soros, but with better hair and worse decisions. So this junior trader from Nomura, fresh out of Wharton, still had his tag on his suit, starts bragging he's long copper into China's PMI print. I laugh so hard I choke on my Wagyu slider. I tell him, kid, if you're long anything Chinese tonight, it better be the delivery menu. So next thing I know, we're in a full blown tequila off. He's got the guts of a frat boy, but I've got the liver of a raccoon in the distillery. So we decide we're going to knock back a few reposados like the yields are sub 2 again. At some point, I blacked out. I don't know, like a full systems flush crash. Wake up in the back of a black car. No idea how I got there. And I'm wearing someone else's tie. Not
Oh
a shirt,
God.
not a shirt, just the tie.
Oh no, no.
Driver says, I told him to take me to the Futures pit, which apparently meant the basement of the bar at the Four Seasons.
No.
Later that morning, George, this is the horror part. I logged in and somehow, I fat fingered a short position on the Brazilian real instead of rolling out my yen hedge. So I didn't even trade. I just screamed in my Bloomberg terminal and prayed to Paul Volcker's ghost. Cost me 7 figures and 3 toes to frostbite after sleeping outside my own townhouse. But on
Holy
the plus side, the tequila finally wore off.
Oh God. Wow. So Van, yeah, it's Friday's probably the toughest day for you because you start early on Fridays, no? I mean, I don't know, maybe the whole weekend's a blur for you. I don't know what are you saying? Is are Saturdays and Sundays tough for you or like what no, you just sleep it
Like I
off.
said, usually, usually we're starting on around noon, and like I said, going straight through the weekend. But I think in general, Fridays are great. The markets are closing, the bourbon's open, and I stop pretending I know what a soft landing looks like. So
Yeah, and exactly.
aim for survival, not alpha.
Yeah, at least Saturdays and Sundays. I mean, you can't do any damage. Everything's closed. Although I imagine you could probably do a number in the crypto markets because they're still open 24/7 on the weekends. So, but at least you can't like fat finger something on at least until 6 p.m. on Sunday night with the futures. So, um, wow. Hey, David, how's your week on, David? David from Montreal. You there?
Yes, sir. My week has been fantastic, George. Volatile markets
Awesome.
are always posing to be profitable. Van, I
Yeah.
do want to do this where I get you in one of our conferences, and then we just have a stand-up comedian night for financiers. Because, dude, you are hilarious.
It's Van being Van.
Appreciate that.
It's Van being Van.
He's
So.
great, isn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah,
just Van, make sure you don't charge me $10,000 an hour like you once did for for consolidations.
yeah, God. So, Dilly, I don't know what's going on, but what's his name? Howard Nutkick was supposed to show up, or maybe it's next week. I don't know what's going on with him, but I haven't heard. Have you heard from Nutkick? I haven't heard
I
from
have
lately.
not heard from Howard Nutkick,
Oh God,
but
it's
I want to give him a piece of my mind, so I'm waiting.
you're waiting for Nutkick.
Yeah.
Okay, all
Oh
right,
yeah.
cool,
Mm-hmm.
cool. Cool. Dilly, I got a problem here. I hit a button and I'm looking at this thing. I'm scared. I got the soundboard up. I didn't even know this thing existed, but now I can't see all the avatars. I see soundboard and
Okay,
so
so
Dilly,
click the little it looks
the
like a
pill,
magic wand.
the magic wand to make it go away. Oh, there
Yeah.
we go. Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
God.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
All right. So
Wow.
so we have a newbie. Let's see how long this guy can. Oh, he's from Walrus Financial. All right. So Imperato Maximiliano. Okay. Welcome to the stage, my friend. The party never with the show never ends. Okay. So Imperato, you've come to bend the knee. Welcome. What's on your mind, my friend? Please unmute yourself.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me. Some familiar faces up here, some new faces. Great to be here. I just want to add real fast. David actually personally called old Lugnut and told him to shut up the last 3 days. I just want to thank David for doing that for the whole market.
When David speaks, the market listens. Is that the idea?
No, it's Lugnut just keeps talking too much.
Oh,
And
Lugnut, yeah,
Lugnut, yeah.
yeah,
So we
Lugnut,
finally
yeah.
got a muzzle on him.
All right, so hold on.
We couldn't keep the 40,000 feet,
Yes, all
from
right. So
happening today, but
hold on. And Brian, this is an important point you bring up. Very important point. So Howard is in the witness protection program. All right, and so he was talking to us, to Dilly, and like he didn't know like how she'd emerge as Howard Nutkick, Howard Ludnuck, lunatic Lugnut, lunatic Nutkick, Howard Buttkick. So it's just Dilly. Maybe we have to have a poll as to how he should be properly addressed. I mean, Imperato, do you have an opinion? Should it be Lugnut or like what? Like where can we go from a branding perspective? Like, what do you think would be best?
That's tough. I personally like Lugnut just because that's about how useful he is right now, and I think you could swap out a Lugnut pretty quickly. You know, you get a bad Lugnut on there. You could
There you
probably leave
go.
one off, honestly. The tire's gonna keep going
You
as long as
could
you got
probably leave
four.
it off.
You know, I think you could probably leave that one off, you know, and Ron White might get mad at you, but you know, I think we're good. I think we're
So
good
yeah, okay.
leaving
So
that
I
Lugnut.
like that assessment.
yeah, so Dilly, maybe we got to get a name change. Maybe on a serious note. On a serious note, I'll try to be serious. And Dave Nicoski, maybe, or David, or Drunk, or whoever, Rusty. On a serious note, so when you have the whatever his title is, Commerce Secretary, whatever Lugnut's official position is, when he's shilling for the electric car company, and I can't remember, I think it was him or Navarro said, you know, you only lose if you sell, all right, and you know they're shilling for the S&P, and the administration's coming out with coins and all this stuff. I mean, when they write the history books, like, why do I think the history's not gonna this will not age well? Like, to me, it's just, you gotta be kidding me. But going back to what I think what Dave was saying or whatever, it's like this stuff keeps going on. And it's like, I don't know, like the market just looks the other way. To me, it's like the death of money. It's like it's the whole thing, and I don't want to make it political. It's not a political thing. Both sides do it. It's just they're so freaking corrupt and nobody seems to care. Van,
Shill
you obviously have a thought on this,
oh,
Van.
I mean, look, shills are like bad tequila shots. They're loud, cheap, and you'll regret them 10 minutes after buying in, and somehow they still keep showing up on my feed and my portfolio.
Yeah, so Van, you're not. I mean, I know you probably got a lot of guys in the administration calling you and stuff, and maybe they want you to sponsor some of these shit coins. You're not a buyer of these things, man.
Well, I think crypto's kind of like blackjack with no dealer, no cards, and the table's on fire. But yeah, I'll still bet a bourbon or two and a half-eaten hot dog on it.
Hmm. Well, if it moves, you got to trade it. I mean, you can't miss out on it. But Dilly, let me ask you, since you're the Bitcoin. I mean, I know you're not in shitcoins, Dilly, but like when you see the administration,
Thank you.
trying to put shitcoins and everything, right? Like, doesn't it like it's like, ew? It's like, are you kidding me? Like, what's your reaction to it?
My reaction to what? Say that again.
So, like, when the
Shit coin?
administration's shilling for shit coins and Trump coin, all this kind of stuff, like,
Oh, George, I played Trump coin. And when I saw him like drop that, I was on Spaces at the time, and I was like, of course, our president is going to launch a shitcoin before inauguration. Like, I knew that it was real, and so I bought it at $4, and I rode that up. I sold along the way. But yeah, I did make money, and then I
Dilly,
also
you bought Trump coin?
at $4, George. It was like at like I think he dropped it at like 11 something at night. I was like, of course this is real. Like he had I think 3 or 4 NFT collections during his
Oh God,
campaign. So I took advantage of it. But then I lost it all on Melania coin. So at
oh,
least I can
Melania
go.
coin.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I can pass a lie detector test now, say Melania Trump screwed me.
All
So
right,
like
break in.
it
Sorry,
was
Dilly.
worth it.
Break it, silly. Dilly, breaking. Look up in the nest. We have a tweet from. I'm going to let you read it out, Dilly. This is your mirror. Look in the nest. I put it up from
It's
Christopher
Nutlick.
Santucci.
It's
Nutlick,
Howard.
Nutlick,
Why do you want
Howard
me to read it?
Nutlick.
Howard Nutlick.
Oh God.
He
Oh,
doesn't
gee.
deserve that, George. Quite frankly. So
Wait.
I like nut pick.
Griftwick's pretty good too.
Which one,
Yeah,
Emperor? What? Which? So anyway. Oh man, this is all right. So what else we got going on here? Let me look at. So I don't know. Is anyone trying to stay serious? But it's kind of late on a Friday. It's a
it's a
punchy here.
Friday. I think it's
Yeah,
hard
I
to be
know, I
serious.
know, I know, I know. Is
I
I
love
like
that
anyone?
you started this, George.
I like Howard Nutkick.
Yeah, I think. No, I, yeah, I think.
That
I
was
think
just
we're.
funny.
I think we're staying with Nutkick. That was Dilly's idea. I think we're staying with Nutkick. So, okay, so I'm gonna invite anyone who wants to come up. Like, what is the, sometimes you watch sports and they're like, 10 greatest plays of the week or whatever. So, what is the outrage of the week? Like, or what's the most noteworthy thing of the week? Like the most ridiculous stock price, the most ridiculous thing anybody said, the most ridiculous thing that maybe happened in your life. So, like,
That's a really good one.
okay, so someone come up, says, "See, Rusty's raising his hand, and
There's a
please raise your
deal
hand. Like
lined up.
anything's fair game here." So, Rusty, you go, please.
Yeah. Uh, can I just say Tesla? What beautiful earnings. I mean, that's like, let's be honest here. Look at the EBITDA. Like, that's it in a nutshell. Like, are you for real? It's a freaking, like, I put this in there. I'm like, look, guys, you're gonna buy a car company in an economy that you have no clue what it's going to do at the moment. Like, that's just blows my mind. Just blows my mind.
So
But
Rusty, the price action to you post the numbers. I mean, does it speak to people buying narrative? Does it speak to the fact that
it
it was
speaks to
short? Sorry, what were you saying?
trade
So what?
traders. I mean, it's just these traders are going to pump it and then dump it. They're trading it like a freaking meme coin.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to me, it's just, I don't know. The market's just messed up, broken, whatever. It's insane. And by the way, okay. Here's one. Okay, so a couple things I want to say on the electric car company. So I tweeted out 20 minutes before the earnings the other day. I'll put this
Before
up.
Tesla?
Yeah, before Tesla's. I'll put this up in the nest. I tweeted out Tesla. I have no idea what number they will fabricate for earnings per share after the close. I also have no idea what fairy tales they will make up about robots and FSD.
Yeah.
I also have no idea what the stock will do in reaction. However, what I am certain of is that the cash flow will be poor, and the CEO will no doubt try to pump the stock with dreams. Tesla, despite what others may say, is a car company selling on 9 times falling sales. Caveat emptor, you buyer beware. So that turned out to be right on point. And like the serious people that follow this thing, they took apart, his comments, and there's going to be a gazillion self-driving cars in the country by the second half of this year, and they're going to have tons of them this summer in Austin, and blah blah blah. I mean, it's all lies. It's all lies. But I have no position. It's just to me, it's like outright gambling. I mean, it's insane. And so whatever superpower it might have, be able to read cash flow statements and balance sheets, it's like completely useless. Then they say, "Oh, well, you don't get it. It's not a car company. It's a robotics company. It's an FSD company." And da 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 da. I don't know. I mean, to me, it's just a no-fly zone. I'm waiting for the chart to exhaust itself, and I'll probably go short again. I don't know if anyone's got a
I
particularly strong view on the stock.
I'll just say this about it. I you know I can't remember who was in the space he had sharing about. The thing is at the end of the day, I don't think people realize where the batteries come from for that company, the majority
Mhm.
of them.
Yep.
And I mean, if you would just look, and I had to break the news to someone about that, and they were like, "Wait, what?" I'm like, "No, it's not. They're not all made in Texas. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, it's not the case. Like, it's a car company. Just look at it that way.
Yep.
Stop trading it emotionally. And that's the biggest thing you see. It's just emotional trades.
Yeah. Well, Rusty. Your problem is you're too much of a fundamental investor. I'm teasing you. Van,
I
what do you? What?
listened to the Tesla earnings call, but I listened to it by listening to all of the Tesla investors listen to it,
Yeah.
which I think is the way to listen to Tesla earnings
Yeah. What'd you
because
learn?
oh my God, just the amount of coping that was happening during like them listening to the call was just like it oozing out. It was beautiful.
Right.
I don't get it. He sounded really sad and depressed. Um, and he at one point like brought up this as a near death experience. Like I don't know how that's bullish for a company, but then again, I'm a GameStop investor, so I don't know.
Yeah, I it's just crazy. I mean, by the way, it was great. So again, talk about people coping and people just still getting into number go up basically. So I had someone the other day after I put that tweet up, they attacked me because I think I was citing Gordon Johnson or something like that. And we've had him in Spaces. We've had them on the YouTube, whatever. And they attacked me like, "Oh, Gordon Johnson, like he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's been wrong, yada yada yada." And I was like, "Well, hang on." And then I went and pulled up a chart of earnings revisions for Tesla. And hear me out. I want to say I'll say this twice, say it slowly. So if you look 2 years ago, what the earnings estimates were for 2025, they were about $6 a share. So in 2023, people thought Tesla would make like $6 or something like that in 2025. The consensus number now, I think, is around 250. It went down, I think, I don't know where it is exactly, but 250. So the point is, talk about change in expectations. I'm not saying that earnings went up or went down. I'm telling you that clearly, fundamentals have fallen apart. The earnings estimates went from 6 to 250 for 2025. And now, last year, whereas it was the first time in the company's history, a decline in unit sales, marginally of 1%, this year they're going to be down at least 10%, maybe 20%. I don't know. So, and it's selling on 9 times sales and yada, yada, yada. And so, when this guy's hassling me, he's, "Oh, Gordon Johnson, he's an idiot. He's been totally wrong. He doesn't know what he's talking about." I was like, wait a second. He's been more right on the earnings estimates than anybody. The stock price, not so much. I mean, if I told you, Dilly, if you didn't know anything else other than Rusty, if all I told you, if all you knew is John Roque would say, this is for Rusty, is that company A's earnings estimates are going to go from 6 to 250. That's a little, Rusty, if that's all you knew, the earnings estimates collapse from 6 to 250. What would you expect the stock price to do?
Drop. I mean, it's insane. Like, look, this thing's staying elevated. It will eventually meet its maker and come to,
Yep.
the market will make its decision. And, I was explaining this to a guy. I said, look, man, you're going to tell me this company, look, I, it's okay if it were in its growth phase. It is not there anymore. You got to understand what this company, people don't get either. Say what you will about it, I don't care about the politics of the guy or whatever. He never patented it. He put it out there so everyone could use it, right? That's why everyone can make these cars. It's nothing that no one else can't go and make
100%.
tomorrow. They
100%.
can. I mean, it's
100%. But you know what? It's like, despite we know all that, but yet the stock still defies gravity. So it consumes so much mental capital, or as Dilly would say, there's so much brain rot associated with that. I'd rather invest my brain cells, like I know Van's level of brain cell activity may be somewhat depleted. I'd rather invest my brain cells in a game that makes more sense. It's like trying to play in a pinball machine where the table's crooked. And so, Dave Nicoski, I think I triggered you. You got something you want to add, Dave?
Yeah, I want to touch off, and I think that's the beauty of being a technician, and not to like say that fundamentals don't help, but when you have a cult stock, and you get a bottom formation like you had, over the last week in Tesla, I'm just gonna say, you know, earnings don't move a stock. People move a stock. It's actions taken after an earnings number, right? And like I don't care to comment on Tesla itself, but as what Russ had Rusty talked about, it's interesting that Elon has given this technology away, and I've been an advocate that says China kind of has the upper hand here, and I'm an American. I was born here. I'm pro-American. I don't need a tax or anything like that. But if you look at if you took like Mexico, for instance, China exports more vehicles to Texas than the US companies do, believe it or not. And that's happened in the last 5 years. They're looking at, China exports almost 300,000 cars into Mexico. So we are seeing a dynamic shift, the likes of what we haven't seen in anyone's career, because this has not happened before.
That,
In 1970, no one knew what a Toyota or a Honda was, right? By
Yeah.
1980, everyone knew what a Toyota and a Honda
Yeah,
was.
for sure.
You know,
David,
so
David, I live in central Mexico,
yeah,
and I can tell you from boots on the ground, there I see as many Chinese brands. There's so many car brands down here now that are Chinese. Like there's a new one that I feel like pops up every month. On my street alone, there's one Tesla, there are three BYDs, and at least three to four other Chinese car maker brands just on my street alone where I live here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Emperor,
and
Emperor, I want to ask you a question too. Aren't those cars, the Chinese cars, priced much more cheaply than the Teslas and other cars? I mean, they're really cheap, are they not?
Oh, by far. So BYD is the most comparable one, right? Because it's
Yeah.
EV for the most part. They are, I mean, if maybe half the price of a Tesla, with pretty much all the same features at this point. I mean, there's the argument between the self-driving stuff, whatever you want to say, but as far as just features and general luxury, they're I mean, maybe half the price. And
who's
then
talking right now? Because I don't have it showing up on my phone.
It's the guy.
Emperador.
It's Emperor Dave. He's in the second row,
Gotcha.
far left.
Well, I already follow him, so
Yeah. All right.
go ahead.
Cool. Yeah. So, hey, by the way, Emperor, you know what? So let's talk a little bit more. I want you to talk a little bit. So you're in Mexico. So here's a question for you. What do you think, though, for us in the States, being in Mexico, like, what's most noteworthy to you, or what do you think we appreciate the least about what's like being in Mexico? Like, is it, I don't know, cost of living, or they hate us, or people are nice, or the food is good, or they're running out of water, or whatever? Like, tell us something that we might not appreciate being in Mexico because you're on the ground.
Yeah, so I think one of the main misconceptions that I learned is in the bigger cities, like where I live in a city, it's in my profile, Querétaro. It's about 2.5 hours from Mexico City, one of the colonial cities, huge city, over 1 million people. It's very modern. There's a lot of very modern, nice things here that I did not expect. A lot of American brands, of course. The average person here, though, that I've met, when you're from a nicer city and a nicer part of Mexico, not just like a nicer area, like neighborhood wise, but I'm just saying like city wise. Most people here do not have any desire to go to
Go
the
to the
U.S.
U.S.
It's
It's
the
the
people
people.
from. Well, I'm getting some feedback there. There we go. It's the people from, the areas of higher violence and obviously poverty, like out in the Michoacan, Guanajuato, of course, Sinaloa. Those are the type of people that are, fleeing to the U.S. The people in the nicer, bigger cities like Mexico City, my city, Monterey, they're really not interested in going to the U.S. at all. That's the first misconception.
And let me ask: is that changed recently, or why do they not want to come here? Because they don't like Americans. They think, or now they hate Trump, or like what like? Could you just like tease it out a little bit?
It's there. There's not like there's a big change there. I think it's just a common misconception. I mean, the quality of life in some of these bigger cities is nice. Obviously, the wages here are very low. So that is one of the negative benefits. But if you own property or come from a family that has had some properties and stuff, you're doing well. And if you own any businesses, you're also doing well. And they do really there's a lot of classism here, obviously, but the people that have money here live very well, and very
Yeah.
comfortably with a lot of luxury.
So you're saying the cost of living is much more modest. Okay, I interrupted you. So the first thing you said was that they, except for the druggies and whatever, the people don't want to come to the U.S. They're pretty happy there. So so let me say. So what else is noteworthy? I mean, in your view, that we wouldn't appreciate. I mean, obviously you enjoy living in Mexico.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I earn U.S. dollars and spend a lot lower cost of living. So if there's an inherent advantage to that, off the top, right? The cultural aspect's much different as well. I mean that seems like an obvious thing, but the common view of what the US American dream lifestyle is like is that you go and you work all day, you go home, you close your garage, you close your curtains, and you turn on Netflix or your TV and you don't do anything. A lot of US neighborhoods are essentially ghost towns after 6 p.m. at night. You maybe see the occasional car, somebody getting home late or going to an activity, but there's just not a whole lot of people that are out and about comparatively, right? So like I know there's, some areas different than others, but for the most part, down here there's people are always out and about doing stuff together. Like whether it's, grabbing a coffee, grabbing a drink, grabbing some tacos, some food, whatever it is. People walk, a lot more, do things out and about a lot more rather than just sit in their homes. So there's a lot more buzz to the life and the
Got it.
atmosphere.
Got it. And Jay, Is the craziness with Trump, has that become a thing down there? And they talk a lot about like our, because Mexico's particularly exposed because they run a very large trade surplus with the U.S., especially as a percentage of GDP. I kind of remember, I think it's like 140 billion, and their GDP is only like, I don't know, 1.5 trillion or some crazy number. It's a huge number, and a lot of that's from U.S. transplants. Obviously, people, U.S. companies moving their stuff down there. So, how are they thinking about all the craziness with the tariffs and trade policy right now?
So yeah, I mean, previous to what happened, in the last 2 to 3 months, the general consensus was like, because they get their news media is basically like third hand at this point, and it's just like in the U.S. you watch CNN, they tell you one thing, you watch Fox, they tell you one thing. Down here, they get only basically one side of that. But it was kind of like the guy's kind of a jerk, whatever. He's made some comments, so but it wasn't really that big. Now with everything going on, they're going, This guy's a madman, right?" And the funny thing is, that was about a month, 2 months before. Now, most people that we talk with right now are going, "What in the hell's going on? What's this guy doing?"
Right.
So it's almost like they have this shared opinion that most of us have right now, like what's going on? This guy's wrecking a global economy. Except they were maybe a month ahead, I guess, in that same thing. But the general thought is that, they love Americans in general, right? Because there's a ton of American companies down here that create jobs, right? Boost the economy, and from there they export stuff to the U.S., right? Manufacturing,
Sure.
obviously, a lot of automakers and all of that. There's a huge Toyota plant. I know this is an American company, but the vehicles like your Tacomas and stuff are made about 15, 20 minutes down the road from me over here, and get shipped up to the US, right? So big economic benefits. There's a ton of international companies down here in general. And the general thought is that, they like Americans. There's not like
Yeah.
any hatred or
Yeah.
rivalry there.
All right. So I got one more question for you. Then I want David to weigh in. So recently, I'm sure most of us have seen, it's all over the place, travel intentions from foreign destinations. In other words, foreigners coming to the U.S. Inbound travel started to collapse, and you read opinions of Europeans and other places. It's like, the heck with the U.S. or the heck with our government anyway. And they don't want to come here anymore, and so on and so forth. So, Emperor, I want to ask you, as far as like Mexican attitudes towards the U.S. is, and maybe this is getting too much in the weeds. Maybe it's not noteworthy to you, but like, are Mexicans talking about like the heck with the U.S.? Like, we're not going to travel there anymore. Or you haven't really seen or heard that?
There's a little bit more because of the tightened immigration policies and red tape. There's a little bit of it now. It's
Mm,
just it is really difficult to get a visa. You're on a wait list for over a year right now, and that's actually extending instead of getting better.
right.
Part of that was originally caused with COVID, and then since then it started to get better. Now it's gotten worse because of the red tape. But I'll add one comment here. I think is important. Mexico's actually winning from that scenario because people that are maybe avoiding the U.S. they're coming to the Mexican beaches at this point.
Wow.
So there's actually a net win there for Mexico, even though it doesn't outweigh the other losses
Oh,
going
oh,
on.
and I have to ask you. I have to ask you. So this. I'm being sarcastic, so people, please don't throw political tomatoes at me. So you look at the list of accomplishments. By the way, this. I'm sorry, I have to say this. So I remember like a few weeks ago, there was a press release from the White House talking about all the winning and the 50 accomplishments or 100 accomplishments they've achieved in the first 30 days, 60 days, whatever. And okay, fine. The border got tightened. That was legit. They took the illegal immigration down big time, so that was tangible. But then you start reading the other stuff. It's talking about declaration of this, declaration of that. So I have to ask you, my Mexican Emperador Maximiliano friend. So one of Trump's biggest accomplishments, he's really working for us, is we've renamed the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Like, do Mexicans give a shit about that, or they laugh at it?
I mean, they think it's ridiculous. It's one of those when somebody tells you something or does something super outlandish, you maybe you want to get mad, but it's so outlandish you almost laugh at it's like
Sure,
laughable.
sure.
That's more of the approach, I think. Not one single person recognizes that down here. Like not one single person recognizes it. Not one map is going to get updated here. Obviously, any American company like a Google or an Apple Maps or something like that is going to maybe show it on that screen, but
Yeah,
not one person down here is going to recognize that. And like I said, it's so outlandish, it's laughable more than an anger thing.
that's hysterical. Hey, David, you got something? Unmute yourself, David.
So yeah, unfortunately, it's to do with the Tesla conversation. So I'm detrending the
Oh,
current conversation. So George, if you want to continue on,
yeah, yeah. Let's just hold this here because yeah, save it, David, because we will go get back to Tesla. But this Mexican thing is like I don't really ever heard this discussed much in space. I think it's really interesting. And for
Did I bring up Mexico at a bad time, George?
did you bring it up at a bad time? I'm not following,
I
Dave.
brought up the discussion of Mexico and Chinese cars going in there.
Oh yeah, no, this is a great
Like
segue.
it's interesting because I don't think most people know that.
Yeah, no, for sure, and I'm really glad he probably didn't realize what he was getting into, but I'm glad our Mexican friend can weigh in here because unlike the rest of us, are just spitballing. It's great to hear it from boots on the ground. So,
It's
Emperor,
very interesting. Like the to David's point there, I'm not kidding. If you start looking up car brands, the Mexican car brands down here, I feel like I discover a new one every day. Every time I go to a mall, there's a new one parked out in the middle. They all
wow,
look super nice, and I see them all over the road too. So it's not like,
great.
hey, they're trying to enter the market. They have fully entered the market. I wish I had the numbers in front of me. I've looked them up before,
Yeah,
but
but you,
it's incredible
It's 21
increase.
billion, 21.3 billion is what
what's
they've shipped in the last 5 years, and that's equal to the U.S. automotive industry.
sorry,
GM, Ford,
sorry,
everybody.
David. David, can you say that number again? I'm sorry. Could you say the number again? I'm sorry. What
21.3 billion, I think, is the
is
number I
what
recall off the top of my head. It
is
could be
that?
21.7, but it's commensurate with all the U.S. auto brands.
All right, I'll take the last statement because of the first number I just can't relate to that, but whatever. So, Emperor, let me ask you a question. So, what you're saying, these cars are nice, there's zillions of them, they're much cheaper. So, we've got the Chinese cars aren't allowed to be sold in this country, and in Europe, I can't remember if they can't be sold or the tariffs are absurd or whatever. But everything you're telling me makes me think that you know, any administration we have here is going to be loath to allow the Chinese cars to come into this country. It'll just destroy, the rest of the U.S. auto industry. So, Emperor, let me ask you a question: what's the quality like of these cars? Like, they're a lot cheaper. I get that, but is the quality widely thought as being, decent? Like, what's the deal on that?
The general thought, because I've asked, because I've actually, just out of curiosity, been like, is this something I need to consider? The general thought process is for the risk reward you're taking,
Yeah,
the lower price, it's worth like, okay, maybe the quality is a little bit lower, but there's not any noticeable quality now. To like David was saying, it's been what 5 years or so that this has really popped up. So in the last probably 2 to 3 years is when I've noticed it the most. So what your sample size on when cars typically break down and have issues, that's usually at that 5 to 7 year mark. So maybe a TBD on that. But honestly, the reviews are there's obviously some bad reviews on some areas on the cheaper cars, but I feel like that's who leaves reviews, right? Is people that had an
Yeah.
issue. The guy that's having no problems not jumping on the website and writing a bad review. So it's just a tough sample size at this point. But I can tell you from a consumer perspective, the consumers are definitely willing to take this risk because the amount just in 2 years, I can tell you the amount of Chinese automakers that I see on a daily basis on the road has probably increased 5x.
Yeah. So, George, just to give you a breakdown in numbers, in 2020, China shipped them 57,313 cars. In 2021, it went to 115,201. 2022, 262,658. In
wow.
2023, 415,000. 2024, 452,350. So you have close to a 900% growth rate in 5 years.
Right. So, Dave, I'm just thinking as you're triggering me as we go along here. So let's just stay with the last number, 450,000. So, Tipper, I gotta ask you. Let's just try to spitball here a little bit. I mean, 450,000 units. Presumably, it's for Mexican consumption. It's got to be a very material part of the Mexican car market. I mean, we do 17 million vehicles a year here. I don't know what Mexican car sales are. I'm sure someone can Google that right now. But if they're 5 million or 10 million or whatever, I mean, if they're doing if they're shipping in 450,000 vehicles, I mean, that's got to be like 5-10% of the market. I mean, that's a huge. I mean, so Emperor, you're saying they're like how ubiquitous? You just see them every time you turn around. There's another one, no?
Yeah, they're all over the place and they're growing exponentially. And another caveat of this is the average Mexican family probably owns one car. It's different than the U.S.
Right.
where you have two or three cars in your in your driveway. If you've got an elder son or daughter that drives, you may have three vehicles parked outside. But down here, it's typically one, maybe two at best.
Do you have any idea ballpark how much one? I mean, I'm just approximate order of magnitude, not detailed number. But how much does one of these things cost? Like 20 grand, 30 grand, 15 grand? Like to buy just like one of these average Chinese cars, like new. What would they cost? You have any idea?
Yeah, they're all in that 20K range, 20 to 30 for the your base models. Obviously, if you get into
Oh,
SUVs, they're
yeah.
higher. But
But
like for example, BYD has an EV that is around 25K brand new. And it's absolutely murdering any of your closest Teslas.
And by
And
the
that
way, like I'm sure someone on the stage has this, but like I think the price of the average new car transaction like the last year has been in the US like $49,000, some crazy number like that. I mean, you imagine what you're talking like if those cars you're talking about were allowed in here at 25K and they're just as good, they run rings around the Tesla, like, lights out. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, and you've got maybe eight Chinese automakers that are all competing with each other, and they're all pricing in the same price point. Then you have Volkswagen and Nissan that are really large down here that are able to basically compete in that same price point. And then you have the U.S. automakers are nowhere close as far as pricing. They're all much higher.
George, I gotta
Wow.
jump in. Well, BYD, Tesla uses their batteries,
Yep.
and that's the thing. And he's right. It is about a 20,000 price point U.S. dollars. So, I mean, and when you go to Europe, it's the same thing. And like I said, this boils back to what Elon did. He gave away the technology for free. It
Yep.
just was going to come around to when does
Yep.
someone jump on it?
No, 100% Rusty. 100%. Dave.
Yeah.
David.
So to give you a breakdown, General Motors and Ford account for about 20% of the Mexican car market. And that comes from multiple sources. Chinese represent 19.5%.
Whoa, whoa. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So you're talking about, China in 2018, if you looked at like SKUs in Walmart, they were close to 80% of Walmart SKUs were Chinese good. That number came down to 60%, with a leap up from India SKUs went from 4% to somewhere around 16%. So growing very fast. But China has gravitated, and one of the things I said on that other unpopular show today was that if you look at what China's doing, Xi is jumping on an airplane and doing a music tour to all of the Asian countries to secure relationships, and we're here sitting here waiting for a phone call.
Yeah,
We're
no,
not
yeah,
visiting
it's a
those
joke.
countries.
Yeah,
We're not
it's
opening dialogues,
yeah,
and this is, I think, a problem that I'm seeing, at least from my chair, and seeing the daily, hourly reports of what's happening.
yeah.
And if they've already secured a relationship with Mexico that is on par with U.S. auto sales, which is a large driver of revenue for any country, right? We're not talking about cheap cars, but China is talking about a lot cheaper cars
Mm,
and is securing a foothold in some of the
yeah.
markets that we had a
Yeah,
stronghold in.
so Dave, sorry, let me ask you a question. So you said the US is like 20%, China's 19.6. When you said 16%, did I hear you right? India was 16, Indian cars were 16%. What'd you say about Indian
No,
cars?
I was
Sorry.
talking about SKUs from Walmart.
Oh,
If you
excuse from
looked at,
Walmart. Sorry.
so Walmart has moved away from China since
Yeah,
2018.
yep, 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 yeah.
The
No, I got it.
US
I
has
got it. I got
really
it. I got it. I got it. I want to
moved
stay on
away from
cars.
China,
Yeah,
right?
David, I just want to stay on cars. But I just want you to
Yep.
repeat. I want to stay on cars. Did you say, would you say that the Chinese market share was in China again? Just so I'm clear. Everyone's clear in this room.
Well, right now, depending on the source you get it from, it's anywhere from 19.5 to
All right.
20.2%.
So
US is at 20.
it's on par with the U.S. Okay, fine, got it. Jesus. Oh boy, that's yeah. Wow, wow. Hmm.
And these are facts. Like I'm not pro China.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not,
Dave, Dave, no, Dave, we
I
got
don't
it.
want
We
to
got
get into that,
Yeah,
right?
we got it. We got it. We got it. So, Emperor, let me change the subject a little bit. So, I really come to, I mean, I think we all have outraged or annoyed or disgusted with like the quality of our food here. And whether it's, pesticides or preservatives, or I'm actually gluten intolerant. So, I just developed this in the last couple of years. Our food supply is all screwed up. And just compare and contrast to like even Europe. I mean, theirs is much better than ours. I'm just kind of curious in Mexico. Is food the integrity of the food supply or whatever? Is that really an issue, or are they bereft of a lot of the problems that we have in the United States?
My opinion is the food here is fresher. Obviously, a lot more affordable, but your majority of your ingredients are a lot fresher.
Yep.
I mean, I I shop at Walmart or HEB for most of my groceries, sometimes Costco, and but most of it's locally sourced. But the majority of your ingredients and like your fruits, your vegetables, and stuff like that, to me, they're fresher and they're cheaper. The only thing maybe you could say U.S. beef is a little bit better quality wise.
Right.
That's probably the only thing I would say quality wise is a little bit different.
Right. So, Dilly, I know you're very health conscious, and I saw you reacting to what Emperor was saying. I mean, like, Dilly, you're very picky about what you eat, and
Oh yeah.
yeah. Right.
I'm all about like hopefully RFK is whatever he wants to do. I'm all about at least here. I think it's insane the amount of just like like just shit in our
Yep.
food. It's so and you go over to other countries and they have the same product like but the ingredients are like completely different.
Yeah.
So and I'm coming from this like you said, George, you have a gluten issue. I have celiac, and that like developed later in
Yep.
life. I
Yep.
think
Yep.
it's like gluten is
Yep.
an issue a lot of people are coming to realize that they have a problem with, and it's just it's our food. It's terrible.
It is. We're going to go to Tom in 1 second, but Emperor, I have one other question for you. So we read a lot about the water problem, like Mexico City, which is like up at a high elevation, like the place is sinking and whatever, and the aquifers are draining and all this sort of stuff. And been reading for a year now how terrible the water situation is. So question for you, whether it's Mexico City or elsewhere, in terms of like water supply and also in terms of like pollution. We're big on, people talk about in some of these countries that you have a pollution problem. So with respect to pollution and water supply, like what's the deal, like either in Mexico City or elsewhere in Mexico? You got any perspectives on that?
So the general water scenario, most of the country is fine. There's a couple of areas. Mexico City's got its own. There's a that's a whole. We could do a whole space on that one. Monterrey, which is one of the largest cities up in the north, obviously, in some of those areas that are more in the deserty areas, they do have long droughts where water had become an issue a couple times in the last few years. Where I live, there's been zero issue with any water. In most of the country, zero issue with any water access. They do a lot of water transport down here.
Mhm.
In general, you don't drink the water, but you have plenty of flowing water in every single place that you're at, whether your house, hotels, whatever. Never any issue access to water. And then we use like at your office, your local office, they have the 5 gallon jugs of
Sure.
water.
Yep.
That's what I use in our house. We have it's hooked up to my refrigerator, and water comes out through the door just like any other refrigerator. It just I replace whatever a 5 gallon jug of water, and the water truck comes by. Swap out about 2 or 3 of those a week with them.
And what's the issue? Just the water quality. Most places just not good. People,
Yeah,
people,
the
people got. I remember going to like Cancun and stuff. You have to boil the water and all this kind of nonsense. Is this just a Mexican thing? Like the water integrity, the quality is just not good enough. Like, what's the deal?
Yeah, they don't do as much treatments. So like most of your treatment and the fluoride and everything that gets put into a lot of the U.S. water systems, they don't do that here, and
Right.
so they drink purified water that they buy at a store or have somebody locally deliver. And then you mentioned pollution. Any big city is going to have pollution. Mexico City, the metro area is larger than pretty much anywhere in Latin America. Obviously, there's a lot of pollution there, very, very concentrated population base. But elsewhere, it's not bad. It really isn't. It's not noticeable. For me, we're at elevation two. We're at 6,000 feet. There's usually enough cross current that pretty much keeps things, the air
Right.
fairly clean and fresh.
Right.
So it's not really an issue that I've noticed.
That's great. All right. So now we're going to go to Tom, and then after Tom, we go back to Rusty. Tom, please unmute yourself. Tom, you there?
Hey, yeah, hey, Emperador. I've been to Mexico, and I just wanted to know, have you tried pulque? And if so, what do you think of it? And then also something people might be interested to know. I mean, uh, how dangerous do you? A lot of people sort of tend to think that Mexico is very dangerous. How dangerous is Mexico? How safe do you feel in general? Maybe walking around at night or something like that. I mean, your area is probably much safer, but okay, I'll let you.
Yeah, yeah. So a couple of quick comments on that. Pulque is fantastic. It's a natural made kind of alcoholic fermented beverage. Very good. There's a few local pulquerias, is what they're called around here, that are fantastic. Similar to like what a brewery would be, or microbrewery. Um, yeah, very, very good drink. I'm a fan. There's a lot of flavors.
I haven't been able to
Safety.
find it anywhere else.
Yeah,
They
it's
don't
a
like
it's a Mexico
afford it.
native thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really found in other areas. But yeah, fantastic drink. I'm a fan. Safety. So yeah, that's a question obviously I get a lot. Um, where I live specifically is very safe. It's very cartel neutral. So there's no issues with that here. Um, if you go not too far away from here, obviously you can get into some of those areas. Mexico has what they call quotas or toll roads, if you will. So all of the interstates from any major area in Mexico, they have these toll highways, and you hit a toll booth every hour, 2 hours or so as you're driving through them. The roads are very well kept, and they're not only patrolled by National Guard, but it's controlled access and exits to that. And they are 100% safe. I've never had any issues. I've driven across the country many times down to the beaches and stuff. No issues there. As far as walking around at night, anywhere in a big city, if you walk around super late at night, I mean, nothing good happens at after midnight. It's what my dad always told me growing up. But I walk around the streets even in the evenings. I've never felt in any danger at all. If anything, I've actually felt safer in some ways. The access to guns here is almost non-existent unless you're doing illegal activities, like majorly illegal activities. So, like organized crime type of level. So, honestly, I mean, the only thing, like, if you're in a big city like Mexico City, maybe somebody grabs a knife and tries to take your cell phone or your wallet off of you, and that's all they're going to do, and that's all they want. But yeah, I've never really felt in danger, and honestly. I grew up in the U.S., grew up in Arkansas, been to a lot of big cities around the US. I've probably felt more nervous walking around, Bill Street in Memphis or, in St. Louis, Dallas, areas like that. I've probably felt maybe more at danger or more on edge than I have in most places I've been here.
Wow, that's fantastic. Rusty, you follow up, Rusty?
Yeah, and this for Emperador. So I've been to Mexico quite a number of times. Yeah, for business and for just to travel, and I love it. And I think pulque, the problem is with that is it's a if I'm not mistaken, it's a transport thing because of the shelf life. But anyway, I would be remiss if I didn't ask, um, how is the sentiment on the peso and using cryptocurrencies, particular
Oh
Bitcoin.
dang! Oh dang! I knew this was going
I
to
had
happen.
to ask.
All right, I'll allow it, but keep your answer brief. Keep your answer brief, Imperador. Go on.
Uh, I I don't think there's a whole lot of interest in it. I think
Good.
they want the
Smart
peso
people
to
in Mexico. Good. Keep going.
I think I think they want the peso to stay fairly closely pegged to the dollar. Obviously, it's had its fluctuations. Mexico made a mistake back in the '90s when they devalued their currency, and they've spent years trying to recover from that, and it still really hasn't recovered. But I think because of the trade partnership and agreements there, the amount of tourism stuff, I think just staying as pegged to the US dollar as possible is kind of the general thought process here.
Yeah, that's, I was curious. I haven't been there about a year and
Yeah.
a half, and so I was curious if it
All
had
right.
shifted any.
All right. So, guys, it's 6:02. I'm gonna close this from at 6:10. So, if anyone's got a question, put your hand up. So, Imperdo, you probably didn't realize what you were getting into by raising your hand,
Yeah, he got
yeah, but I
interviewed.
got to tell you something.
It's really
This
interesting
is
though,
really interesting.
fascinating.
Like, when was the last
Hmm.
time? I mean, I've never been in a serious space, semi-serious space. Well, it became serious once drunk left. But I've never been here this thoughtful conversation about what's going on in Mexico. And I would actually invite you to come back again to give us more inputs because I'm learning a lot. And I also notice I see all the smart usual characters in the audience and they're all listening. So it's not just me that's got this opinion. Um,
Well, it's especially interesting with everything going on with our current
Yeah,
political
100%,
climate.
100% to so Impaired. I
Yeah.
got two questions for you, Impaired. So, what's the take on Mexican attitudes towards all the immigration stuff? And I'm talking about not just in the perspective of people going across the border from Mexico into the U.S., but I also understand going back. Mexico had an immigration problem with a lot of folks coming up from the southern border, like either going to Mexico for the purpose of going to the U.S. So, could you speak to what's going on with the immigration issues within Mexico?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mexico was kind of it became a landing ground for that, right? From a lot of countries further south of here and across seas. So a lot of people would come into Mexico and then obviously then try to track north. That created a lot of problems for Mexico. There was a lot of people that were actually a little disgruntled with that scenario, right? And if you look at some of the data and statistics, a lot of the legal crossings were actually not Mexicans. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I remember I was shocked when I saw the amount of non-Mexicans that crossed from the Mexico border, and it actually outweighed the amount of Mexican nationals that were actually crossing there. So I think some of the immigration reform is welcomed because of some of the riffraff that has drifted through the country. Now, for me specifically, I live in the very central part of this country, so all of that stuff is pretty much localized to the north, right? And anybody passing through just passes through. And I see them. I see them passing through here, and hey, I'm on my way. I'm from Honduras. I'm from Nicaragua or wherever it is. From time to time, and they're asking for some money to continue their journey. But that's the only thing I've really seen as far as localized. But I do know the general sentiment has been in a way that hey, we're kind of getting caught in the crosswinds here of an issue, and so cleaning that up is maybe a net benefit.
Right. David, you have a question?
Not a question is so much, I brought the Mexico thing up. I do have to, be honest and say I have a holding in there. I bought MEXX, which is triple long Mexico. It's up 72% from my April 9th buy. So just, I didn't think this would be a whole topic of conversation on Mexico. And I posted this on my timeline a number of times that the relative strength of Mexico is far beyond what the performance of the markets are. And I've said that about emerging markets. So I don't want to push an agenda here. So I'm glad that we're carrying on and we're all learning something here. That's truly where I think is remarkable.
That's what we're trying to do here. So
1 second, can I
yeah,
respond to that real
yeah, go
fast?
ahead.
Just a quick comment. So I also purchased EWW, which is it's not the leverage version, but it's essentially the iShares version of the Mexico ETF. Around that same date, I believe, Mexico's market, when Claudia Sheinbaum was elected, you not only had some fears about what her leadership would look like, which in general, the sentiment has been she's done a much better job than maybe feared or expected, either one. And you also had the Morena party essentially take 70% control of the government in a way as far as alignments go, which scares a lot of investors, right? They are more of the socialist left leaning side. However, that spooks markets whenever one party has full control, especially based on a lot of maybe programs that they push. However, that's kind of started to tell off, and you can see it in the chart as well. To David's point there, that the fear is leaving and the sentiment's returning into the Mexico market.
Right. Wow. Question for you. We often hear as well that the drug cartels, I forget the name of them, conquista, whatever they are, the drug cartels wield unusually unhealthy amount of power and influencing government, and they got guns and all this other stuff. Like, is that the case? And is the government put up with it, or is that kind of exaggerated in the American press?
There's levels of exaggeration, but there's also there is deep tied corruption there that's been systemic for a long time. When you have massive amounts of money and organized control of a lot of areas, obviously there ends up being under the table type of deals made, right, for the net benefit of the people. I mentioned I'm in a cartel neutral area. There's not only an agreement with the government that's kind of it's spoken but unwritten, that keeps this very clean as far as that goes. There's also an agreement among various cartels that, hey, if we have trouble between Sinaloa and Guadalajara, but I send my grandmother and my aunts to go live in Querétaro where I live, and you also send some of your family to go live over there. We leave that place alone, kind of like a Switzerland effect, if you will. But there is a lot, and that's one of the dynamics of the Mexican government and Claudia Sheinbaum in their negotiations with the White House right now. An interesting caveat that's happening is you have El Mayo Zambada from the Sinaloa cartel that's in U.S. custody and has a lot of information about a lot of high-ranking government officials that may or may not be um, corrupt, I guess would be the term there, or involved in certain activities and complicit. So that's an interesting bargaining chip that the U.S. does hold over Mexico currently.
Wow. Dilly, you have one more question before you got to run? I think we're going to close this space in a minute or two, unless anybody else has anything else they want to raise.
No, I just want to talk about this more sometime.
Yeah, Imperator, could you come back again? Because, like, seriously, I want to thank you. I'll say it on for myself and behalf of everybody else. I learned an awful lot here. Seriously, this has just been tremendous. And again, you probably didn't think this was going to happen, but this is a great part of this community. I mean, learning from people like you, as opposed to people trying to get in cockfights and argue and whatever. I mean, I can't thank you enough. This has really been wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, who knew? Who knew? This is just what happened. So, again, thank you so much for doing this. All right, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, it's 6:10. I'm done. Have a great weekend. Dilly, 4:15 on Monday.
4:15 on
Yeah,
Monday.
4:15
Yes,
on
we'll see you
Monday.
then.
All right. See you then. Have a
Have
good
a great
weekend. Bye
weekend.
bye. 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 Bye.
Bye. Bye.